Hello and welcome to Rewind Reviews. This week we sit down to take a look at a sequel that proves, in my opinion, why doing a sequel that is basically just the first one again is a terrible idea. There are many ways you can approach sequels. This isn't the one. And ironically, I think one of the most iconic films for me for proving how to do a sequel without just doing the first one again is the third movie in this franchise.
Well, we can't.
But they learned their lesson the hard way.
Dan.
I think they learned their lesson the hard way, Chris.
Hey, it's up to you. But listen, if you take us down that road ends in watching the fifth one as well.
No, I'm not doing. Not this year. That's not this year. I guess we have a trilogy now then to watch the third, fourth, and fifth of these.
Oh no! The trilogy's got to be like a trilogy. I think I think we can do like a Star Wars because that's a trilogy within a series. But I wouldn't want to. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do like the final three movies or the first three movies of something. So
That's fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about Die Hard 2.
Dan.
We're talking about
Die Hard 2,
which I think is an interesting film in a lot of ways. Because it is, technically speaking, this movie is by no means a terrible movie. I think it is functional. The story makes sense. There aren't a lot of weird nitpicks because of story beats that don't quite fit. Although I'm sure there are a couple, but like even those are probably explained somewhere in the movie. There's a little twist towards the end, which I thought was reasonably set up and then executed. Some of the action is pretty good. Bruce Willis, reasonably charming, but that's the problem. You're noticing a lot of adjectives here, of descriptive words that just sort of, this part is fine. And we've said in the past, Chris, we've reviewed movies. The worst thing a movie can be is uninteresting. Because I would almost rather a movie be like so bad, and I don't just mean for the podcast, I just mean in general. I will always take a movie that's so horrendously bad that it angers me over a movie that I just have literally almost no emotional or reaction to at all. Like a movie that just washes over me as just fine. That's almost more, mediocrity is more offensive, I think, because I think what mediocrity generally indicates in filmmaking is playing it safe. I think when you're really trying something different and new and exciting, you run the risk of it being terrible, or you run the risk of it really reaching for something new and glorious. And, you know, I always say when we watch bad films, not always, but I often say, you know, I see what they were going. I recall myself saying this sentence many times where I go, well, they were taking a big swing. This was a miss, but I respect the premise. Like I respect where they were what they were trying to achieve with this, even if I didn't like how the final film turned out. Die Hard 2 is the opposite of that. This is just like safe, bland, like studio directed. Like you can even tell when you read the trivia. There's absolutely no trivia about like somebody with a creative vision trying to get the movie made against a studio or whatever. This is just clearly the studio going, yeah, we need a second one of those, and someone going, all right, well this time he's in an airport, and then someone else going, all right, and it's this and it's that, and it's just like tick boxing all of it.
Because interestingly, let's come back to that, because I've got a hot take. I was expecting to come on here and be like, nah, it's fun, it's great, and unfortunately, the problem is I've decided I've never watched this film with a critical eye. The context of which I've seen this film is, I know the Die Hard films get more and more ridiculous, and I know they get crazy, so I'm almost like, do you know what I mean? I've never watched this film almost in a way expecting anything other than Fast and the Furious in terms of like sequelizing and stuff. Sure. But I do have a bit of a hot take because I don't feel personally it's as much of the first one again as people say, but we'll come back to that. Because I think that could be a discussion. Because I know that I'm in the minority, not just on this podcast, but in general. Well, I suppose this podcast I'm even. There's only two of us. But what's your? For me, this film was Christmas in lockdown. Always loved Die Hard.
Oh yeah, we've
Let's
skipped
watch them all.
histories with.
Yeah, we've skipped histories and sort of overall recommend and stuff. We got right into it. So the Actually, I don't think that was the part of the binging. I think we watched Die Hard, and then pretty soon after that, we watched Die Hard 2, and then a couple of years later, we went and sort of watched them all consciously in lockdown. But my experience watching this film for the first time was very much Die Hard 2, like riding a real high of Die Hard, but kind of being in the best position to watch Die Hard 2, which is a real high after seeing Die Hard, but very aware that no film matches that, and they get a bit ridiculous. So, expectation being that, and actually kind of almost wanting that. You know what I mean? I don't go into a Fast and the Furious movie. The reason I drew that comparison earlier is because I don't go into a Fast and the Furious movie wanting high-end art. I go into a Fast and the Furious movie wanting to go, it makes no sense. Why are they in space? Like, that was I've decided, I was talking about this with someone the other day, there is genuinely no line for me with Fast and Furious. They could do anything, and I'd be like, yep, cool. And I want that. I want to be bemused. I want to be kind of like, And I kind of, because I knew the reputation of the latter films, I kind of went into this being completely okay with that, which is why I think I've always enjoyed this movie. What was your view?
That confuses me. There's a thought there, because this series doesn't do anything interesting until the third one. I can't even understand anybody describing this one as it going off the rails. This is so boring. This movie is such a dull, safe sequel of the first one. The bits of this movie that are quote-unquote crazy are just where they've had to contrive ways really badly to do this first one again and keep hanging a lampshade on it. They keep going, oh, can't believe the same shit's happened to the same guy twice. And I'm like, really? Like, okay, you're gonna point that out?
I'm a bit where he's like, oh, another air vent. There's like no reason for him to go in the air vent.
What the fuck is it? So the weirdest and craziest parts of this movie are the movie forcing McClane through the first movie again. That's what I do. Even the end when they try to recreate Argyle pulling up in the limo and taking Holly and John, but it's the janitor in his fucking plane buggy. His get around the airport buggy, and I'm just like, the fuck is this movie? Did somebody just put the Die Hard script into a I'll make your movie shitter app, and it just sort of just changed all the details in a bad way?
You're keen to dissect. Fine. What was your first
Oh,
experience?
sorry. Did I mishear? Did you ask me to do my history? Look, my history of this movie.
No. But that's what we were. I didn't ask you specifically at the end of my last point, but that's what we're doing.
Right. No. Let's. I'll quickly do it. Look, I saw the first one when it aired on TV as a result of the third one being released. And I'm not 100% sure, but I remember my excitement for the third one based on having seen the first one as the third one was in cinemas, being not allowed to go see the third one because I was about, I must have been I think we worked out I was 7 or 8 or something like that on the last podcast. I was very young, which is a common theme we've noticed on this. I find it funny. We often talked about my parents having quite strict rules on me in terms of they wouldn't take me to see this film and they wouldn't let me show that one. But most of the films I loved and enjoyed were all these films that were supposed to be for adults. I feel like they actually drove me into that by making them sort of taboo, by just not allowing me to watch them. I reckon if they'd just been like, watch whatever you want, I would not have the taste I have today. How our parents shape us. But I remember having a bit of a gap because the first Die Hard aired on TV, but I couldn't find the second one anywhere. I was waiting for it to either air on TV. The local video store didn't have it. And it wouldn't even surprise me, Chris, if the answer turned out to be that I saw the third one before the second one, because I just remember there being a massive stretch between me seeing the first and seeing the second, and then I remember the disappointment of it just being worse, but not in a significant and notable way. Even as a kid, I just remember being like, well, this is. I remember I found it boring. I think I found it boring as a kid. I just wasn't engaged with it, and as an adult, I think I can see why, but as a kid, I was just like, well, that's not very, it's not, I don't like that one as much. Because that's the other thing as well, it's worth noting as a kid, when I say I found something boring or I didn't like it, what I really mean is I didn't watch it 1,000 times. Because when you asked me as a kid, did I enjoy the movie? The answer was always yes. Doesn't matter. I just saw a movie. So when I give context and I say, oh, I wasn't as fond of that one, I didn't care for that one, what I mean is I didn't immediately obsess over it, get it on VHS, watch it 1,000 times. That was the benchmark for a film I liked. Anything less than that, and it was just like I enjoyed it. And I would tell you I liked the movie, but the reality is, evidence suggests I didn't, on the grounds that I didn't then rewatch it 1,000 times. Or that I didn't care for it as much. So yeah, it just kind of washed over me when I finally saw it, and I don't recall. It's not one I watched a dozen times as a child. It's one I've only sparingly gone back to over the years. And I remember the first time watching it as an adult was, I think it was my first year at uni, and I got the box set because 4 had just come out, and I still have that box set of the first 4. Or 4 had come out the year before, and maybe now it was in a box set. And I hadn't watched 2 in a few years, and I went through all 4 and was just like, I remember just distinctly being like, well, that's the worst one of these. That is, because at the time we hadn't been graced with 5, which I think,
yes,
as safe and uninteresting as this movie is, 5's worse.
Oh, 5 is... Yeah, 5 is...
Like, I don't... Look, as much as I say I'd rather an interesting failure, like, I still think I'd watch 2 over 5 if I had the choice. But, yeah, it still stands out to me as being, like, exactly what you shouldn't do with a sequel. So, yeah, there you go. Overall thoughts, and I weaved in my history with it.
Would you recommend it? Because I would recommend it, because I think everyone... Huh? What, sorry?
It's tricky, that, isn't it? Go on, finish your thought.
Well, I would recommend it because I think everyone should experience all 5 Die Hard movies. It's such a wild ride, and from the 5th one just being so appalling, and universally, like, I've just clicked on a bunch of like Die Hard ranked lists, and consistently the 1st is always at the top, the 5th is always at the bottom, and then there's debate in between. Although I have to say, in the majority of lists I've looked at, Die Hard 2 is 4th.
With a Vengeance should always be second, I think.
There's those 2 swap around. So basically, it's fairly consistent, but 3 and 2 swap around between Live Free and Die Hard, or Die Hard with a Vengeance, which is interesting. At least on the 6 lists I happen to have clicked on. So, and I think this is a interesting movie.
Should we do? Sorry, I haven't slipped in my recommendation.
No. That's,
you're doing that. Sorry, go on. I thought you were moving.
Okay, fine. Okay, yeah, I recommend it. There you go. No explanation. Off you go.
No. So I thought you were saying I think this is an interesting movie because you were moving into a more detailed analysis. I misunderstood the start of the sentence. Carry on.
I think it's an interesting movie, and like I say, I just think it's so much fun to watch all 5 of these movies, and you can't get to 3 without 2, in my opinion. So I would recommend it in the context of, well, you got to watch Die Hard 2 because then you got to watch 3, 4, and 5 as well. I was even pushing you to rewatch them all last year, I think, when we did Die Hard, which I don't think you had time to do. But yeah, so yes, I would recommend the movie.
Yeah. So I think if you're the sort of person with a lot of time and you're going to watch them all anyway, I mean, obviously, yeah, do I recommend it? You might as well see the whole set. But I think if you're the sort of person who's like, time is precious, I don't want to watch anything like not worth my time. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend this. I would say just watch 1, 3, and 4. Skip 5 and 2. 2. The other thing about 2 is you literally do not need 2 to watch any of the movies. It's so irrelevant to anything. It's never referenced again. It just doesn't. Yeah, like it's. I think maybe in 4 they talk about the incident at the airport, maybe, but for it's like one line. It has no impact on anything else in the franchise, and it doesn't do anything new. The action's not that great. Like it's just so mediocre. Like I just don't know. So I'm gonna go with not recommend. I think because I respect your time, dear listener.
I have zero respect for your time. Watch all 5 of these bad boys. But like I say, so to get into the analysis, I do admit a crushing sense watching it of like, fuck, from a critical point of view, I can't really fight this. Because it's funny what you say about you could pick holes in the story. I think it's more like logic holes throughout. So it's things like the two planes explode in the airport, and seemingly the people in the airport, despite some sections of the airport being like blown to pieces, they don't hear anything. They don't hear a noise. They don't get a vague whiff of exploding planes. The fact that they're struggling with communication, and then because it's convenient for that scene, turns out the phone on Holly's aeroplane is working at least, because she's able to page John.
Yeah, there is an element of why doesn't he ring Holly?
Yeah, I know.
Because so much of this movie is about, like, so for very quickly, the premise of this movie, and I don't think the premise is a bad one, by the way. Like, I don't think they started from a bad idea. They were actually very clever in this one, in that they dug up another book to base it on. Not actually a book in the series the original was from, but a book by a completely different author with a completely different setup. But the book was called 58 Minutes. Actually, I don't have the name of the author in front of me, but I can find it very quickly. Walter Wager. Wager? I don't know. Walter W. No, sorry. Sorry, sir. I do not recall I do not know how to pronounce your name. He wrote this book, and the premise is basically that the terrorists take over an airport sort of subtly, in that they gain control of all of the planes and block out the ability for them to be landed by the airport. So all the people circling, waiting to land above, are hostages essentially, in that they will eventually run out of fuel, and if they don't do anything, if they don't do what the terrorists want, the terrorists, who are also controlling the planes, can tell the planes to land, which, by the way, also doesn't quite work, but we'll talk about that in a minute. It tells them to land, and then gives them sort of bad information as to where the runway is, so that they actually go like nose first into the runway and can make the way. So there's a tension throughout the film, because the reason McClane is in the airport is because Holly is up on a plane. So once again, Holly's the hostage, and John's running around fighting terrorists. That's the premise of the movie. Yeah.
And my biggest logic flaw, Dan, is the fact that the notion that a plane full of British people that were running late by at least 30, 40 minutes would cheer at the announcement that they were going to land.
Yes.
Those British people on that plane would be like, oh, fucking good, about time too. It was so uncharacteristic that a plane...
Did you just say the plane was going to land? Yes.
Woo!
Why are these Americans clapping? I mean... This is good news, surely, but too stiff up a lip to show emotion or reaction to anything. I agree with you, Chris. It was supposed to be a plane coming in from England. All I can assume is that plane was full of Americans who had just been to London on holiday and were coming back.
On there.
That is the only way. That is the only way that scene makes sense to my brain.
So the hot take. For me, I don't think it's the first film again, so because wrong. Sorry, say that again.
I was just joking. I was about to call back to last week when you were with the Gremlins, and I was like, Chris, I don't often say this, but you're wrong. No, go on.
For me, I'm talking about my personal interpretation. I'm admitting that, and I've admitted I'm in the minority. But I'm just, I'm sharing my hot take.
I was joking. It's okay. Safe space, Chris.
I'm starting a discussion, baby. So for me, I think it's definitely repeating a lot of the beats. It's definitely doing a lot of, hey, remember. But when I think of that first film, I think of one man against a team of people. He's a specific small team of people. He's got to slowly, kill off one by one in a condensed environment. I think if this film was Speed, which is Die Hard on a bus, if it was Con Air, which is Die Hard in a plane, then I would agree when people say it's just the first film again. Now, I'm not saying it's a good film. I'm not saying it's, not maybe trying to be that. But for me, it's not so much about what this film's doing, it's what the first film does. For me, so much of that first film is he's trapped in this enclosed environment and it's one man against the might of this terrorist organization. Whereas I think this film is a bit bigger than that. And whilst it's as terrorists attacking an airport and McClane's against them, that for me, there's so much other outside stuff going on and, twists and turns with those other characters and like a bigger range of characters. And, he's got the military there. He's got the airport police, it was like, okay. But for me, I think it's not so much, I'm not even saying this film isn't trying to be the first one again, but I think because it so doesn't capture that sense of being trapped and being, one man on an impossible task, because it doesn't capture that. For me, I don't feel when I watch this like it's just the first one again. For that reason.
Sorry, I can't. But what point in the movie is he fighting alongside anyone other than the fake fight towards the end? Chris, this is one man in an airport fighting a bunch of terrorists. And you can say, well, there's the police officers and the army. The army, one, with the bad guys, but two, the airport police represent the FBI coming in at the end of the last one. And he's got his Argyle, which is the guy in the basement. He's got he interacted with loads of people in the last one. The only difference is this time it's face to face versus radio. But the structure and the context of it is exactly the same. All right, it's not Die Hard on a plane, but it's Die Hard in an airport. He's trapped within the confines of this airport, and that is a huge space, admittedly, which allows for a lot of different scene changes where it's not like just one repetitive location, and that I guess gives it a bit of scale. But in terms of what it changes about the movie, it changes absolutely nothing. It's still John McClane gets into an action sequence. John McClane, on his own, goes to try and talk to the authorities and convince them into doing the things that he knows is going on in the way to stop the bad guys. They're not listening. The only difference is it's not over the radio, it's face-to-face because they're all in the airport and they can talk to each other. Then he goes off on his own again to do a different thing. And it's one man versus these terrorists. At no point is he fighting side by side with absolutely anyone. This is one man in a confined space fighting terrorists. That's what. There's no way to see it any differently. Unfortunately, I just it's the same movie. They just tried to scale it up and got it wrong. They scaled it up in all the wrong ways.
Yeah, it's a fair argument.
It's just it's the same thing. If he was going into action with people at his side, I think you'd have a much stronger case there. Because I sort of see what you're saying. It definitely doesn't feel as enclosed, but I think that's out of execution more than premise. They were very much trying to do the first one again. I think just the fact that he doesn't.
Well, even I admitted that. I said
absolutely. 100% you did. Yeah, 100%. So I don't know. I find it really hard for any sort of analysis this to not just be that it's the first one again. I'd really struggle to feel that way because you just say you're right. It's not as confined as the first movie. That is true. They've tried to scale it up, and in scaling it up, they've got John McClane able to choose where to go a little bit more because it's a bigger playing field, and the police and other authorities that disagree with his methods and what have you that are talking to him on the radio, he can now go see them face to face. But but every single major action scene is McClane off on his own, doing a thing.
What do you think is the most egregious shoehorn of the first? Because I don't mind the Al Powell one. I think that's fairly logically written that he needs a friend to run those fingerprints, so calls him. I think it's the reporter being on the plane. Yes, the thing that's oh come on now.
Yeah, Holly gets to injure that reporter who's a dickhead again because he revealed something on the news that put her life or the life of her family in danger again. It's insane how beat for beat this is the first movie.
I think he's I've admitted that you've made a great argument on that. one that I kind of felt a
that
bit
wasn't
bad
me
for
adding
the
another point
reporter.
to it. I was just remembering that that's also a point from the like as we were discussing Holly and that reporter, they've contrived even that is kind of insane. Like it's
I think
it almost feels like they sat down with the first movie and just said, all right, how do we get all of these elements back in a way that makes sense? And it was like every one of them was like some really massively contrived coincidence.
Well, like I said, the Al Powell one I'm fine with. It's the reporter, but
I agree with you. I think Powell is like perfectly like makes sense. Like you just go like, but Holly happening to be on the plane, the fact that he happens to be in a location a terrorist attack occurs, because in the subsequent movies he gets drawn into it because of who he is. He's not just wrong place, wrong time. Like Die with a Vengeance, he's summoned into that situation.
the fourth one is he's a bit wrong place, wrong time.
Is he? I thought he was called into that one. I've not seen that one in a couple of years though, so correct me.
I might be wrong. I might be wrong here as well. But my memory is he happens to be the cop that's sent to get Justin Long, and then chaos ensues because other people are after Justin Long, etc.
But at least he's an on-duty cop at that point. You know, an on-duty cop was going to respond to that call. You know, and that might lead to action or situation because they're a police officer. This is him on his off time again, like happening to be in location in a state that he's not a police officer when a terrorist incident occurs.
And it's definitely not enough to just keep going. God, why does this keep happening? Yeah. But the thing I was going to say about the reporter, the reporter is definitely
like 3 times.
Well, Holly does it at the end as well. Yeah. The reporter is definitely an arse. And the worst bit, but it's like something like at the end where he's doing his thing and it's like, my life and talent. Like he's definitely a cock. But I don't think I'm gonna say it. I don't think he deserves to get like tasered and then punched by the old lady at the end. Fundamentally, he's reporting the news. Like he's a reporter on a plane that's been hijacked. Like every other reporter would do that. I don't think he's no more putting their life in danger than it already is. If anything, he's alerting more people to it, potentially increasing the likelihood of the good guys getting involved. Yeah. Like I think it gets a bit hard done by, in my opinion.
Because in the first one he isn't. Like in the first one he is like.
Oh yeah, I'm talking specifically about this one.
No, it's interesting, isn't it, how they've done it? And again, it's the same. It's that same thing of like, here's the thing from the first one, but slightly worse. In the first one, it's really clever what they do with him because you could absolutely understand his logic as a journalist to go, well, I want to get the real information, but actually, what he does in the first one is puts people in more danger, and it's very clear how he's done that. And he could have and should have known better than to go after someone's family. For an interview, that's not fair. It's very sleazy. You get how he got there, but it's both a sleazy choice and a really risky one in the circumstances. But you're absolutely right. In this one, like Holly's tasering of him is, I mean, yeah, like madness. Like he's as you said, I don't think he's really put anyone any more danger than they're already in. They certainly couldn't blame the people the terrorists are. Oh, we should actually clarify why what their demands are. The terrorists' demands in this are there's a plane due to land at the airport with a prisoner who is like essentially their leader. They try to do all the geopolitics stuff in the background of this movie, and it's just because they've made up a fake country. It just doesn't function. You just sort of ignore it and go, okay, terrorist leader is in prison. He's been imprisoned. He's been caught. He's landing in the airport. Terrorists want him back. So they basically are saying, land his plane at a very specific location and then give us an escape vehicle. That's what they want for this. It getting out on the news that this is happening wouldn't, as long as the airport are continuing to comply with their demands, this being public knowledge doesn't really change anything. It's not like, because it's an airport, it's not like the press are going to barge in and get in the way of the gunfighting. Like, the press can't get into the airport any more than, airports are very securely locked down. It's not the same. It's not the same at all. And but the movie acts like it is, and then tries to give you that moment of catharsis, which I admit is well set up. They set up that lady has the taser right at the big opening scene of the movie. So when it's used towards the end, you go, oh yeah, all right, you brought that back. Chekhov's taser. But it tries to be like a really satisfying moment where Holly buzzes the guy and then hands it off to the air hostess, who's like, shuts the door or whatever. But it just doesn't work, because what he's done is just nowhere near as bad. Nowhere near as bad.
Yeah, completely. Completely. And that, in general, just him being there feels, a little bit stretching.
But everything feels like that, though. Everything is just that little bit of a stretch. Like, they have to just keep contriving why he gets in an air vent again, why he has to do this again. It's just every single scene feels like it's the hand of the writer. It's exactly that. Every scene has some element of them forcing the situation.
Here's a question, right? Sequels have been doing that for 40 years now, and now people just can't stand it. I think categorically the most egregious version, genuinely in my opinion more egregious than this, is The Hangover Part 2, which literally makes no effort to make it even feel differently. As we've said, because of the open spaces and stuff, this feels a little bit different. But Hangover Part 2 is just so egregious for me. So if sequels have been doing it for so long, and now people get frustrated, do you think at one point people weren't? Do you think when this first came out, for example, people wanted that? How have sequels been doing it for so long if all along people have hated that? And maybe it's because, social media didn't exist, so it was just, the anecdotal conversations you'd have in reviews or something, or people didn't know. I don't know, but I just think it's interesting that, was that ever a good thing, or has it always been a thing sequels do that annoys people, but there just wasn't as much discord? I don't know. I don't know the answer. Just think it's interesting.
If I was guessing, I would say it has always been, because the word is always the sequels never. People have said for as long as sequels have been happening, they're never as good as the original. They may not have had. I think there's a bit more sort of general public media literacy now when it comes to critiquing things. So I think people are a little bit more able in the modern age to voice what doesn't work about a movie. But the word, from as young as when I was a child in the early 90s, and looking at reviews going further back, people always said the sequels are never as good. That's always been the feeling amongst just general public. They maybe didn't have the tools or the understanding of how films work to be able to narrow down why that is. Because again, I think the internet and social media has created a slightly more media savvy general audience. More casual audiences that previously wouldn't have watched films with any real critical. They'd have just gone, yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down, or it's in the middle, it's fine, but whatever. Have now got the tools to sort of go, why didn't that work for me? And go, oh, maybe it's that it's the same beats as the first one. So I don't think they will have. I don't think people at the time, general audiences, would have been saying it's the same beats as the first one. Narratively, the structure matches, and this matches, and it's all this is contrived to make it happen again. They'd have just gone, it's not as good. They may not have known why. And looking through the history, the reviews of this movie are harder to track, obviously, because of its age. It was not in the internet age, so getting reviews for this are a bit trickier now. But based on 64 reviews that were found at its time of release, it's got about 69% if you go by the Rotten Tomatoes metric, or if you go by the ratings metric for Metacritic, it's got 6.3. The general critical consensus that Rotten Tomatoes have established, it lacks the fresh thrills of its predecessor, but Die Hard 2 still works as an over-the-top but reasonably taut big-budget sequel with plenty of set pieces to paper over the plot deficiencies. So,
it's weird because even I will admit, as you were saying earlier, I don't think it is as wild and extra. Like big set pieces. Like I remember on this watch, like looking at the time and like 40 minutes or so had gone by, and there was fundamentally only that shootout in the carousel bit with all the suitcases that I would describe as like an action beat up until that point. And I was like, oh, this film is... And I didn't know if it was just because I had to watch it this morning, so I was very tired. Someone was messaging me at 2 a.m. and they were like, why are you up? And I was like, I don't know, I just can't seem to sleep, and I've got to get up at 7:30 to watch Die Hard 2. And they were like, well, that is oddly specific. But I didn't know if I was just tired, but it takes...
This podcast is slowly ruining our lives.
Yeah. But the three people listening enjoy it. But it's detrimental to my health today. It was honestly slower than I remembered. And I was like, oh, this isn't crammed as much action as I thought. Having said that,
towards the end,
it is better than a lot of as in the category of generic action movies. I have seen worse, as kind of you said as well at the beginning, and if we're comparing to Die Hard, it falls short. If we're sort of talking generally, it arguably falls short. But I've certainly sat through way worse action movies. I guess to kickstart kind of more positives, the twist is effective. The twist works, I think, at the end. So for those that don't remember, the kind of head honcho from, is it the FBI or Special Services or the people that have been called in to deal with the terrorists?
It's some sort of special forces team, because it's like they're all in camo and they're a military unit of some description that have been sent in.
And they turn out to be working with the villains. And there's two really cool things about it. One, when you watch it back knowing that, it's actually hinted at quite a bit. When they're introduced, John McClane makes a reference to them actually being the bad guys because he knows that he used to work with the guy in charge. And then the scene that's arguably one of the best scenes of the film is the unit is traveling to where they've got the bad guy and the criminal, the guy who was coming over there, and they're talking about a previous mission, and one of the guy goes, "Oh, I wish I was with your unit then," and he goes, "So do I, kid. Because then I wouldn't have to do this," and then he shoots him, and that's how it's revealed.
He slits his
that
throat, I
else in
think,
that
rather than shooting him, which is actually...
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. He slits his throat, yeah.
Which is so visceral in the moment. Because shooting has the sudden bang and the shock value, but I actually think the choice from the filmmakers in that moment to have him slit his throat just feels so much more personal and brutal, and it's slower as well, so it gives you even more of a second to take in what you're seeing. Yeah, it's a really good and effective choice.
Yeah, so I think that twist, in particular, is done well.
And I tell you another thing they do, which is genius, which is that, because I distinctly remember my first viewing, and maybe I'm not remembering my first viewing, maybe I'm remembering a mix of viewings from over the years or whatever, but I distinctly remember the question in my mind of what these different bullets were. So the movie sets up that the villains have these cartridges that are going in their guns. Some of them are wrapped in red tape, some of them are wrapped in blue, and there's a point in the movie where they deliberately take out the red ones and put in the blue. And I remember thinking, that's a deliberate choice, but I don't understand why. What's the difference between the red and the blue? And then someone else does it later on to shoot it. McClane goes back from blue to red, and I remember thinking, are they like the stronger bullets? Is he, because McClane's on a snow speeder thing at that point? Is he? Are those like armor piercing bullets? Are they gonna make the thing blow up? I just remember trying to unravel the puzzle that they've laid out, and that's actually really cool to leave pieces of a puzzle for an audience member to figure out, and then have them put it together in a way that actually makes sense. Like when you get the reveal, which is of course the army troop that had been sent in. aren't going to be actually shooting at the terrorists. They're going to be doing it for visuals alone, just for the they're doing it for the show, basically, so their plan works to make it look like they are actually engaging in combat and doing what they should be doing with these terrorists, but actually all the bullets inside the blue ones are blanks. They're just for show. And when that's revealed, you think back in all the scenes, and suddenly it all just sort of clicks together. That's a very effective twist. It's a clever twist with a lot of really cool breadcrumbs that make it make sense. I've talked about this one in the past when we talked about the Sherlock TV show. That's a weird comparison. But when you're going to reveal a mystery like that, you need... I think the most satisfying way to unravel a mystery in a movie is that there were enough breadcrumbs for the audience to put it together themselves. Don't be afraid as a creative person in a situation like that to make your mystery, to be so concerned that somebody might figure it out before you want them to, that you don't leave enough breadcrumb trails. Because I think a lot of movies make that mistake, where you just go, I could never have worked that out on my own.
Well,
that's why Knives Out is such an effective movie. Because you can work what happened in Knives Out with the evidence provided ahead of the movie revealing it.
Now the trope, which is driving me crazy, and you see it in books as well, and I know I'm in the minority here as well, I know that, but we discussed before, it was an element I didn't like of the first Thursday Murder Club novel, because now the thing to do is give all these clues and breadcrumbs, but they're for like 4 different mysteries. So, like, you can't really piece it together because in your head you're trying to piece together one mystery and actually the breadcrumbs answer 4 different ones. Yes. So that's kind of a trope now. And, in this film, the era this film was made, there was less tropes like that. So it's very effectively done. They also do a really cool thing with Bruce Willis's gun. You can always tell when Bruce Willis is holding a gun what's different about it to the others. And that's the fact that, for some reason... when Bruce Willis holds a gun, the bullets are absolutely endless. Like, he never needs to, reload. If he picks up a gun, he's firing about 20 bullets from that gun, even if it's a handgun. It's a wonderful thing. It's a really kind of little superhuman twist that they put in there, that Bruce Willis is able to load a gun through his wrist or something.
It's like he's got psychic bullets. Yeah, it's a good point. I never really thought about that, but yeah, he just shooting and shooting and shooting, never reloading. That is, I guess,
it got to the point where I was like, right, I'm gonna watch out, because there must be points where he actively steals someone else's gun, and I couldn't. Maybe they're there and I just missed them, but yeah, it just felt hilarious. Like it was just endless gunfire from Bruce Willis.
I never really noticed, but
action movie trope, but
to this, I was going to say, to this movie's credit, that I think was a trope of action movies at the time, because I remember watching the first Matrix and being blown away at the choice to show them throwing away, reloading guns, because there was something about the psychology of a scene, or the way that a scene was edited together, where it would look like almost weakness to have the guy having to reload. Some more realistic, more grounded movies had used it as a way to make the hero look in trouble. He has to reload while he's being shot at. But it wasn't very common, because back in those days the logic was, well, the hero has to be the hero, right? The hero can't look weak. The hero can't look like they're being overwhelmed, because you want. But that was what was so refreshing about Die Hard. The first one is he was a regular guy in really shitty circumstances. And the one thing I think this movie really does do a lot worse than the previous one is, even though the action sequences in this are all pretty good, you very rarely feel McClane is at risk. And I feel like you watch the first one, when he's scrambling around with glass in his feet and he's having to slide down things and climb up stuff, there are multiple points you think, like, he could be caught here, like, he could be in trouble here. And this movie, its closest attempt to make him look like he's in trouble that I can remember, just off the top of my head, is in the second major set piece on the escalators in that sort of abandoned wing of the airport, where all the guys are like painting and decorating and the scaffolding is all around, which is when he's reaching for his gun. He's trapped under some scaffolding, which he has way too much slack, by the way. He could easily have, you could tell he could have easily got out of that, but I guess how do you convincingly make a man look pinned down? and the gun is down the escalator. The guy is the villain is reloading and approaching him, and is basically moments away from point blank shooting him. And then what he does, which is quite clever, is he reaches out and hits the on button on the escalator thing, or the travelator, whatever you call it, the flat one, that slides his gun to him for him to use it against the bad guy. Well, again, though, he doesn't have to reload it. He just sort of picks it up and it works. Because, clearly that gun's barrel or chamber has like 1,000 bullets stored in it. But that's like, he just, this movie doesn't really make him the underdog and the everyman in the way the first movie did.
Well, I mean, Dan, if we're talking about incredibly tight and difficult spots that most people wouldn't get out of, and John McClane finding a way,
yeah,
this is the perfect opportunity to talk about the scene where John McClane is trapped in an aeroplane and about 20 grenades are thrown in.
No, you know what's funny about this one, though? I actually like this one. Go on, and explain the scene, because it's a great scene.
Oh, it's incredible. And for those that don't remember...
I've forgotten about this, but it's in my notes, yeah.
John McClane escapes by climbing into the ejector seat and setting it off at just the right timing-wise, that he's ahead of the flames from, and shit you not, about maybe 10 to 20 grenades. Because the quote is, how many grenades do you have? 3 each. Throw them all, and then there's just a shitload of grenades get put in. But the timing is just so that in almost a Looney Tunes-esque way, McClane, like, and he, it's a really fun scene, but he doesn't look cool in it. No one could look cool. Like, it's
yeah,
it's
that is one of my favourite scenes in the whole movie, I think.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, so so for those who don't remember the context of how he got into that situation, he goes to try and get the guy before they get the guy that they're trying to get back. But when the plane lands, he takes out the guards, and it's just him and the general that the terrorists want. And McClane is with him on the plane, and then the terrorists that are trying to get him back show up. There's a big fight, and McClane locks himself, which I think in itself is a really clever premise. He locks himself in the cockpit, because obviously those cockpits are designed to be, sort of like safe rooms, so no one can just get in and take over the plane, particularly in military vehicles. I know that was something that was added more commercially to vehicles following 9/11. But this is a military plane, this particular one. So the cockpit is obviously got like essentially like a bulletproof door and all this stuff. So they try to get in, can't get in, and you think, oh, okay, McClane is reasonably safe. He could just sort of wait them out here a little bit if he wants to. And then they all go outside and shoot out the windows and then chuck grenades through them, which I think actually makes the villains seem competent, like, which is a rarity in these movies. The villains in these kinds of movies often seem very inept, and like the guy that just shoots at the door with no luck and doesn't realize pretty quickly, it seems pretty stupid. But the actual forces McClane is fighting here, when they decide, oh, let's shoot out the glass and throw the grenades in, that's really reasonably clever as a strategy. And I actually, honestly, because it's a military plane, really don't mind that it's got an ejector seat. It all kind of works. Like it is slightly stretching reality, but it's like just on the line where it like works for me. So yeah, that's one of my favorite sequences in the whole film, if I'm being honest with you, because a lot of the sequences in this movie, action sequences, as reasonably well shot as they are, there isn't as much tension that he's going to be in jeopardy. And when there is, you don't really buy it. And then it's a lot of just people shooting at each other. It's not as creative as the first one in terms of its action sequences either. So just to confirm the running theme here of the first one, but worse.
I do think another, in terms of action pieces though that we like, another tick for the film is its clever resolution and how it merges the two. It resolves one problem, which then in turn solves another.
Yes.
So for those who don't remember, the bad guys are escaping on their plane. McClane's on the wing because and he gets into.
Problem number two that's happening alongside this is Holly's plane is the next one to run out of fuel and is up in the air and really close to needing to just land or fall out of the sky.
Yeah. So and after them, 5, 10, whatever it is, planes in exactly the same position.
Mm-hmm.
So McClane has the scrap on the wing, and he basically starts to leak the petrol out. He ends up getting pushed on the plane, but he's able to then saying the iconic line, which we'll come back to lines. I don't mind this. I'm happy for him to say "yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker" in every film. Lights the line of fuel, which in turn then obviously lights up the line all the way to the plane and then blows up the plane, which then gives the planes a landing track to see, because they've got this, plane on fire to use as a guide for where the ground is, and can therefore land safely. I don't know why. Obviously, John, Holly's on that plane. Not everyone's got off the plane yet. Why McClane then needs to run up to the plane going, Holly! Holly!
I tell you why, Chris. I'll tell you exactly why. Because somebody had recently watched the first Rocky movie and wanted the Adrian moment. They'd wanted the Adrian moment, where at the end of the movie, the fight's over, everyone's running to the ring, everyone's cheering, everyone's going crazy, and the only thing he has eyes and ears for, and it all gets drowned out, is he wants Adrian. That's what they were trying to recreate.
It did feel... I've not even seen Rocky, and it felt like that. Like, even I knew, it felt like him going Adrian. So I thought that was a good...
The brilliance of that scene in Rocky is so strong. I mean, it seems one of the greatest scenes of all time. It genuinely is. Like, everything gets drowned out. You don't even hear who's won the fight. It doesn't matter. All he wants is Adrian. And that's great. It's one of the best scenes of the movie. It's so good. So yeah, it totally makes sense that you try and copy that, but it's just, what the fuck? Like, she's by no means is she in reach of him. So it's just a man yelling a name. It's so meaningless. It's so strange.
I do.
But you know what's funny, Chris? I could absolutely sit here with that scene. Where he lights where the fuel leaks out of the plane wing and he lights it and creates a track. Not only does he defeat the enemy, but he creates a track for the planes. I absolutely, if I was being curmudgeonly stick in the mud, say that none of that makes sense or works, because it doesn't.
Oh, of course.
But that doesn't matter. It's one of those things where I'm absolutely, like the ejector seat, I'm willing to go with it. Yeah, they still don't have radio control or radio communication with the plane, so they won't be able to tell them how to land or how to land safely, how to land in a formation and not crash into each other. It actually, in the real world, makes zero sense whatsoever, because you need the tower to coordinate that landing. And yet the film just shows them all going, hey, there's a strip of light down there, let's all land. And they do it without crashing into each other somehow. It's insane that that's what happens. And you could absolutely spend an hour picking all that apart. But honestly, in this kind of dumb action movie, I'm absolutely willing to go with it. Absolutely fine. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning, which is there definitely are some things you could nitpick about this movie, but they're really not the problem. Because in a better written movie... whether it's a worse written movie or a better written movie, they're just the sort of detail that in an action movie like this, you just go, fine. You know what I mean? It's just not you really have to be trying to go in on this film to point those things out as a problem. Does it actually work, like in the real world? No, not even a little bit. But within the logic of a movie where a man used an ejector seat to escape grenades, I'm fine. It's fine. And as Chris pointed out, it's clever that it solves both problems in one swoop. That's reasonably clever writing. It really is. So there is definitely, I would say, when I finished watching this, I was surprised that there were moments I was like, there are parts of this movie that work a lot better than I remembered that they did.
So to go from the compliments to the the criticisms again, the quotes and the sort of action sayings and stuff came so naturally in the first film and in the first script. And in this, it's like every other scene, they're trying to fit in a line that they're hoping then becomes iconic. The way people talk in this movie. And it's, again, it's a very much an action movie trope. But it's just like they're trying to create moments every single time. I'm trying to find some. Here we go, yeah. Ow, pow, you're not pissing in somebody's pool, are you? Yeah, and I'm fresh out of chlorine. It's just the movie.
That's a good one.
The movie is just full of stuff like that. I close in about an hour. Maybe we can get a drink. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Yeah, and it's just the facts, not just the facts, which is the quote. Look,
we're up to our arse in terrorists again, John. Like, it's just, the movie is just full of shit like that. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's funny to watch.
And I think it's another thing, isn't it, where we talked about this with the first one. As great as the first one is, what we discovered going through the trip about the way this movie was sort of that the first movie, was thrown together haphazardly. The script wasn't finished. They were writing bits as they were filming stuff. They were changing things on the fly. We talked about how that first movie is such a brilliant accident. And not to take away from the craft of everyone that worked on it, because it's obviously such a great movie for a multitude of reasons. It is kind of a miracle it's a good movie based on how it ended up coming together. We talked about that a lot, because what's great about that first movie is there's so much like intricate stuff that feels really intentional that it turns out is just someone ad-libbed a thing and then they worked it into another thing and it actually just all makes sense. And hearing that, you go, how? What a happy accident this movie was. And it turns out the dialogue of the first movie was also a happy accident, because Bruce Willis ad-libbed a bunch on set. The studio hated it. They didn't want bantery. They didn't want catchphrases and quote, but so they made them cut a lot of it out of the first movie, because they didn't like, no, we want a serious action movie, not as dumb comedy. Why did you hire this dumb comedy guy to be your action hero? They didn't like it at all, and they cut a bunch out. So the first movie's a hit. The second movie comes along, and basically McClane had only had a couple of one-liners in the first movie that had gotten in, but he'd ad-libbed a bunch of stuff, and audiences had responded well to it, so much so that in the sequel and the one that follows it, more gags were added at the scripting stage, and Willis was told he could ad-lib as much as he saw fit. Now, admittedly, he was paid $7.5 million for this movie, which is a lot of money. So I guess if you're hiring someone like that, it's possible he asked to be able to ad-lib as much as he wanted, but I believe this trivia that they asked him. They were like, we're going to pay $7.5 million and we want you to just do you now. The first movie was a success. What we're paying for at this point is a safe return. We know this movie will make money no matter what we do, and that's true because the movie did make a lot of money. I think it made double what the first one did. You've just gotta go with it. Just whatever Bruce wants to do. If he wants to say some weird shit on set, just film it, put it in the movie, because people like that in the first one. And that is, I think, how you end up in this situation where half the script is just fucking weird one-liners.
And some of them, I'm looking for quotes now, and some of them aren't. I quite like, they told me they're a terrorist at the airport. Yeah, I heard that too at the end, and guess I was wrong about you. You're not such an arsehole after all. No, you were right. I'm just your kind of arsehole. But then there's some, I've got one here. You ready? Too bad, McClane. I kind of liked you. I got enough friends. Just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Just trying to create, moments and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, that's. Does
it make sense when you hear the background of that though?
You what? Sorry.
But hearing the background of how they got there, though, it all sort of you go, oh yeah, okay. I see how we got there.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. What else you got? What other notes you got?
Good question, Chris. Good question. John McClane, got a bit of an ego on him at this point, it seems. The opening of the movie is pretty interesting because he's at the airport. He's there in his father-in-law's car, I think is what we're told. And it's getting towed, and the cop doesn't care that he's towing another cop's car. He's like, well, you illegally parked it. By the way, he's right. Cops should just do favors for cops who've broken laws. And I know this is a minor parking infraction, but let's not, you know what I mean? Let's not encourage cops to support each other in that way. That could create a never-ending cycle of toxic situation where all cops are defending all cops, even against the indefensible. But yeah, so this cop won't help his fellow police officer and he tows the car anyway. And the movie treats it like, oh, such a Grinch, like it's Christmas, man. What are you doing? But like in reality, he was just doing his job. But later in the movie, Bruce Willis spots some suspicious stuff. Because he's a super cop now, and he goes over to let the actual police officers know that they're in the corner of the room. He taps the shoulder. The guy turns around. It's the guy that gave him a fine earlier, and now he's just suddenly not going to tell the police about the terrorist activity he noticed. Out of ego? Pride?
He
Why
calls
doesn't
them,
he tell him?
Huh? What? At the bar specifically. Yeah, that's fair. But
still,
do you think it's
all
because
fine that man gave you aside? You've still spotted some potentially illegal activity, potentially,
but
something potentially dangerous. What are you doing, Bruce?
I interpreted it more as he knew that bloke was just not going to believe him. Was just not gonna give him the time of day, so he was like, "Well, why bother then?" Because then when he knows emphatically, they're breaking into somewhere, he does go right. You need to get the
he sends the
police
kid
down
after the
here.
cops. Right, fair enough.
So,
I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that was my interpretation anyway. Yeah, but he definitely does still have an ego. Like, I've been on TV. Yeah, so have I. Like, he's definitely got a bit of a reputation which they're playing on and stuff, for sure. But I think with that policeman, it was just that he just thought the guy was a knob. But in a way, they didn't. Do you think that policeman do you think they needed 2 airport police for that? Because that guy who gives him the ticket, and then, well, I suppose the other guy's his boss. But it just feels like it could have just been all the same airport policeman. Like they didn't need to be brothers in the end. They could have just done that with one person. But then it's even more egregious when he just completely 180s at the end. Like the blank bullets are enough to make him go, right, now I love you, Bruce, I'm with you.
Right. Yeah, realizing they're on the same side. Yeah, it's all, again, it's the first one but worse. It's like they wanted that relationship with other guys, where in the end they appreciate what McClane was doing the whole time, and they're on his side now. Because at first, even Al isn't 100%. In the very first movie, I don't think Al is 100% on board with McClane at the very start, but after talking to him for a little bit, he gets on board. They were trying to recreate that, right? That relationship. And I guess the idea was that, the reason that you've got the cop and the cop's boss is because that's how the structure of the first one was. Like, we had Al, then we had Al's boss, who was a dick and thought McClane was a loose cannon that was causing more problems than he was solving, right? So they were trying to sort of recreate that, but did a worse job of it. His relationship with all the various people in this movie as well, it's just like, in the last movie, that character was antagonistic to anyone he thought was a dumbass. Willis's character, McClane, but was reasonably respectful to everyone else. He treats everyone like they're a dumbass in this movie. He's just a dick to everyone at all times. And there's a point in the movie where I wondered if it was the point, because there's a point in the movie where someone goes, you think you're a big shot now after you got on, like, you were on 60 Minutes or whatever. They reference him having been on television a bit because of what happened at Nakatomi. And I thought, are they trying to do a subplot about his character where he's gotten big-headed because of what happened at Nakatomi? I couldn't figure out if that was intent or if that was just bad execution.
He's not a dick to the tech guy. The
guy
who's the radio tower guy. The guy who's with him
you're right. Yes.
That.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters in this movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
He's a lot of fun. I don't mind the janitor either. I think the janitor's kind of weird and fun in his own way.
Yeah, I kind of like that they just, because I think they're going for the sort of Al Pow thing with the radio guy a bit as well, although maybe more the friendship side of it than the antagonistic beginning side of it.
Yes.
And it's kind of like with the janitor, they just went, so we need a thing for the janitor then? And someone just went, let's just make him a bit fucking weird.
He's basically the movie's version of Argyle, isn't he? Like, but
a stranger.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a lot stranger than Argyle.
Well, he just never. Argyle, at least at points, looks scared and confused by what's going on. This guy's just taking it way too in his stride.
Yeah, like if the final scene of this movie, if there was a post-credit scene of this movie, and it was the police tearing the airport apart afterwards just to find clues and evidence of what happened, just searching the airport for any remaining terrorists or any activity, and they go into the janitor's basement and find bodies, like thus setting up that he would like been a serial killer or something all along, I'd go, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you'd be like, yeah.
Cool. I guess the third movie is Bruce tracking down his that serial killer. That guy absolutely has bodies in the walls.
But yeah, as well as like multiple maps.
Yes, I do think as well. There's a bit in the luggage scene. I just want to very briefly mention this. There's a moment I'd forgotten exactly how the luggage sort of carousel scene played out from memory. So I'm watching that with a tiny bit of like tension just on the ground. So I don't remember what goes down here exactly. I know there's a shootout, but I don't remember what the outcome of it is or what happens within it. And there's a bit in it where he drops his gun on the like carousel and it's off it goes. And all I had was images of some family back from Florida on their vacation. And their little daughter just goes, "Look, Mummy, a gun!" And she's just found a gun on the carousel.
Oh, for me, it was the amount of people that aren't going to get their luggage.
Yeah. Oh, it was all the. Speaking for anyone who's ever lost a bag,
See, this
is why Bruce Willis is a real dickhead in this movie.
Die Hard 2 and Toy Story 2. The people that have lost luggage just can't watch those movies.
Yeah. Because that's why some asshole went through and ruined everything. And then at the end, like, because the whole joke of that scene is it ends with him being like, "Yeah, good work, cops. You've come after me. The terrorists have just gotten away." I think he just goes, "The bad guys have gotten away." Because at that point, I don't think he knows they're terrorists. And then they're like, "Well, who are you?" He's like, "I'm a police officer." He's like, "Check. Where's your badge?" He's like, feels for it, and he's like, "Oh, I don't have it. Oh, good. What if I tell you it's in my other pants?" Or he has some weird fucking shitty line. It's not funny. And then, like, 2 seconds later, someone's like, "We found your badge and gun, Mr. McClane," and hands it to him. And I'm just like, why write that he lost him then? Like, what was the point? I get why you make him lose the gun. Making him lose the gun is that scene's attempt to make him the everyman on the back foot again. He no longer has his gun. He's got to take the terrorists out in another way. And he does find a reasonably creative way to take out both those guys. Well, one of them, the other guy escapes. But, like, the badge thing? Like, why have the thing where he doesn't have his badge if you're then just going to give it to him 6 seconds later for the joke? Well, the joke was so worth saving. The whatever one-liner he spits when he doesn't have his badge, that was definitely worth it. It's so dumb.
Well, that is the I bet you that is the logic they'd use. That is why they did that.
Yeah. Let's talk before we move on to like trivia and stuff. There's a few other tiny bits I want to talk about, but specifically, let's talk about Christmas. So the first movie is absolutely a Christmas movie. It's set during Christmas. Christmas is referenced multiple times. There's Santa Claus outfits and Christmas trees and ho ho ho. Now I've got a machine gun. The whole movie has a Christmas element to it. In this movie, it feels like they wrote the entire movie and then someone right at the end went, "Should this one be Christmas too?" And they went, "Yeah, all right." And they opened the script back up, and they threw in Christmas week being casually mentioned at the beginning of the movie, and then they made it. They made one other reference to Christmas towards the end or something, and then they made the end credit scene be "Let It Snow," and then they called it a day. This isn't a Christmas movie, is it, Chris? This is what people who don't think Die Hard is a Christmas movie think Die Hard is.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't think anyone's claiming it's a Christmas movie, are they?
Yeah, there's stuff in the trip about it, about whether this one counts as or not.
Oh, jeez. Well, no, it definitely doesn't. And
this is what I think people who haven't seen Die Hard or haven't seen Die Hard recently, when they claim Die Hard isn't a Christmas movie, this is what they imagine Die Hard is. Because it's still set at Christmas, and it ends with "Let It Snow."
And it doesn't. It would almost be. Well, the trouble is, it doesn't. I mean, to be fair, it doesn't. That doesn't jeopardize or affect the filming anyway. Like, if I was doing it, I'd probably just make it winter. Like, I think that would be slightly better, but equally, it doesn't. It doesn't interrupt anything.
That's fair. It doesn't, but like,
So-
why put it in at all then?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think the cleaner, better thing to do is to just not have it be in any way a thing.
Yeah, Keep winter as a
because-
vibe because it's dark and snowy, and that there's a tone to that feels familiar.
Unless because they don't even do the joke. Because I was expecting at the end, and I guess my memory had added this. My neighbours are having work, by the way, so if that's being caught on the podcast, the drilling, I apologise. Unfortunately, I can't go round and be like, I'm talking about Die Hard 2 here. But I thought at the end they were going to be like, Holly was going to go, why don't we stay at home next Christmas? Do you know what I mean? Or like, let's barricade ourselves in for the whole Christmas holidays. But they don't even make that joke that's there for the taking.
Yeah, I always think that about the British soaps. If I lived in the location of a British soap, if I lived on Coronation Street or in Albert Square, the location of the British soap EastEnders, I'd go on holiday every Christmas because there's always a murder or a fucking explosion or something overly dramatic that doesn't fit in a soap normally, but they do it for scale because obviously the Christmas episodes are always very highly watched for some godforsaken reason. So I would just move out of those, because it's every Christmas, every year for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, those shows have been on for, because I know the Coronation Street is is older than even 50 years now. But, like, you move out at Christmas, go away, like, don't be there, 'cause something horrible happens every goddamn year. It's the same here.
Don't they write that into Doctor Who? Like, one of the later Christmas specials, aren't they going away because London at Christmas time always leads to
it's
problems?
it's the Titanic one where they visit the Doctor is on the Titanic and they get a little visit Earth for a few minutes trip from this space Titanic that's floating above the Earth. It's they've named it after a famous Earth ship. They don't know that the Titanic sank, so it's like a spaceship called the Spaceship Titanic or whatever. And the people on it get to visit the Earth, and the Doctor joins them, and they go down to Earth, and there is no one anywhere. And the wonderful Bernard Cribbins is the only man anywhere to be seen. And the Doctor's like, "Where are all the people? This is Christmas Eve in London. Like, this should be a bustling area." And Bernard Cribbins is just like, "What are you talking about? We had this last year. We had this the year before. No one's coming out at Christmas anymore. We're all staying inside. We're hiding." And that's just a great moment. It's a good way to acknowledge it in a way that doesn't feel trite. This movie, not bothered about that at all.
No, really.
But they even have that line. It's another one of the moments the movie is repeating a beat from the first one. You remember the first one? Come to the coast. We'll have a few drinks. We'll have a few laughs. This is the situation I'm in. Isn't it shitty? They try to do that. I just once I'd like a normal Christmas. Eggnog, Christmas tree, opening presents with my kids. But I'm in this shit instead. It's like, what? What? I don't know. How could the same shit happen to the same guy twice? Like, oh, buddy.
Yep.
Buddy.
I'm glad they stopped that from the third film on. It's
Yeah,
just
they
like,
did.
Yeah, that's just life for John McClane.
Yeah. You know how
Cool.
for you the most unbelievable bit earlier was all the British people actually applauding at landing instead of just going, finally. For me, it's seeing people smoking in an airport. Just couldn't get over
the time,
it.
wasn't it?
Yeah. But I could not get over it, Chris. I couldn't, that was my, I know at the time that was probably allowed, but it's such madness. It's such madness.
Yeah.
Couldn't figure it. My brain just couldn't accept it. Is there anything else in my notes before we move on? Oh, there's a guy gets stabbed in the eye. It's really brutal, out of nowhere. The movie is, generally speaking, a little shooty, punchy, not very gory. Bruce Willis stabs a guy in the eye.
With an ice pick, isn't it?
Yeah, with an ice pick.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Yep. The movie. Oh, also, I made the note that 20 to 30% of this movie is lots of boring talk about radio signals and technobabble that doesn't really add anything to the movie. Also, the geopolitics stuff, none of that is interesting or relevant, and then it helps slow the pace of this movie is awful. It's really bad.
I couldn't remember. I didn't remember how much of the beginning is cutting to news reports about the guy that's like being brought over. Like, I was like, fucking hell, they really give that guy a needless backstory.
Yeah, I don't like. Why? Right, okay. Here's a slight pitch for a pace fix for this movie, because the movie is one of the reasons this movie feels boring is not only is it telling a story I've already essentially been told, but it's not doing it as well. But it's also really badly paced. It just stretches out, particularly the first act. Solution: Bruce Willis in airport. None of the geopolitics stuff. None of the news reports. There's he spots the handoff and the guy sneaking into the luggage rack, thinks something's going on, interjects himself because he's John McClane, he can't help it. And when he gets upstairs and he's talking to them about what he's seen and things are starting to look like he might be right, he's like, what are you guys not telling me? Like, and they then reveal who's landing at that airport that night. Yeah. They just go, look, this guy's coming, and Bruce Willis could be like, the terrorist leader, whatever, without any of the context, without any of the, like, we don't need all the backstory. There's a guy that's important to terrorists or geopolitical groups or whatever. He's like some sort of general that's been arrested for, I don't know, genocide or something, and there's a group that'll form that would potentially want him out. You don't need all the exact context. Just bad guy coming to airport, terrorists coming to do terror to free him. That's all I need. And he can find it out in that moment, because actually that would be public knowledge is weird.
Yeah, because the only thing you'd lose is the reason for the other reporter to be there. But I don't think you need... It's quite sweet that she goes on a journey and kind of almost learns the lesson that the other reporter from the first film never learns. Like, that's quite a sweet idea, but it's completely unnecessary for the movie to function or the plot. So... just get rid of that storyline with that reporter. Just save yourself a bit of time. Like, make the movie, closer to a cool 90 minutes.
Which you could easily do.
Get rid of her. Yeah.
Yeah, you take all that stuff out. All you need is to add a couple of lines of dialogue when they're up in the air control tower with boss, for the boss to be all like, this is probably why they're doing this, because this plane is landing. And Bruce Willis knows they're keeping something from him, so he prompts it. He goes, all this stuff at an airport, there's nothing particularly valuable coming through. What are you guys not telling me? These guys are professionals, and something is going on here. What do I not know? You're keeping something from me, because then it makes him look clever that he's figured it out, but doesn't know the details, and then you get the exposition. It's perfect. It's fine. It's like, it would work so much better, because this movie is like, I definitely felt myself like not drifting off, but I felt my attention waning multiple times watching this movie, and I had to really resist reaching for the phone, reaching for Twitter, and that is never a good sign.
Yeah, it's certainly not gripping.
No. Let's see. I did have one other note, I think, but maybe I've lost it in that discussion. Just all the boring talk about radio signals, which led me to that. There's a lot of that. Some of that could be cut and trimmed. Some of it is relevant, like they're going to certain places because of their ability to communicate with stuff. But fucking hell, this movie does a lot of like, we could try this and route it through this, and I'm just like, it's a Die Hard movie. I don't care. Just say we need the radio signals. We'll go there. Like I don't need. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, especially when often like. It basically all of those situations resolve in either a gunfight or something, or the bad guys blowing something up.
Right. I tell you what, I did think was clever though. When the movie gets to the point when they go to where the bad guys have been based and have been controlling the planes themselves, having taken over, they've made their own little mini air traffic control room. My first thought instantly, because I'd forgotten this part of the movie, was like, well, that's the plane problem solved. Because they can land all the planes from here, because you can control and speak to the planes and give them all the data they need to land from this location. And then I went, terrorist plot. They have hostages. They're the hostages. The hostage situation now is that there are bombs in that room, and if they don't get their plane to escape, they'll blow it up, giving the people who work at the airport literally no way to safely land the planes. That's clever.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah, no, that was very clever.
I just from a script point of view, when you want to get to the point where the terrorists are running around and no longer have a base, and you go, well, if they've no longer got a base, then surely the people above aren't hostages anymore. You just do that. Really clever, simple, worked, liked it. Thumbs up.
Also,
that part.
Also, bad guys on jet skis, always fun.
Yep, bad guys on jet skis, one of which being shot off so that the hero has a jet ski, or whatever you want to call it, it's like a snowmobile of some sort, and then follows them. And they have a little shootout on those. That's pretty cool too.
Yeah. The last, like, other than kind of, the nitpicks of the reporter getting, tasered a bit unfairly and the Holly stuff, but the best part of this movie is probably the last 30 minutes or so.
The last act works reasonably well.
We've complimented the twist, we've complimented the set piece at the end, we've complimented the way the plots wind together. Yeah. The tension of it is good. The last act of this film is the kind of entertaining romp you want from an action movie.
Yes, agreed. So, in conclusion, sequels like this are the reason people don't like sequels. But it's not completely 100% without merit. There are things in it that I enjoyed well enough that I went, okay, this isn't like a complete, like, absolute waste of a movie. It's there are things in it that function. Not enough, I think, to sway me on this movie's side. But I could see enough of these things making somebody come out feeling like that it was worth watching. But yeah, it was, unfortunately, I think the real issue when you get to it is the quality isn't high enough to justify its runtime. And I think if they tightened it, even with all my other criticisms of it just being the first one, if it was an easy breezy 90 minutes, I think even I, with all my criticisms of this film, might have found it reasonably hard not to recommend.
Yes.
Actually, the pacing is the biggest issue in the end. After all my criticisms about copying the first one, I think actually that pacing is the biggest issue.
It's absolutely 20 minutes too long, if not half an hour. This is the kind of movie.
I honestly think about half an hour too long. I really do think you could snip about 30 minutes.
Even before watching it, actually. And I don't know if it's just because I knew I had to get up, but when I checked last night and was like, "Oh, really? It's an hour and 50 minutes." Like, I was hoping for just.
Is it only an hour and 50? It doesn't breach 2 hours. I thought it was 2 hours.
On Disney Plus, it's 1 hour 56, I think.
Oh God, it felt like a lot more.
Did you? Is that how you watched it? Disney.
Yeah, I watched it on Disney Plus. Yeah. I've got my DVD, but like the Disney Plus is right there. It's already hooked up to the TV. I didn't have to stand up.
The dream.
It's 124 minutes. So what's that?
That's weird then, because the Disney. Check it on your Disney Plus.
2 hours 4 minutes.
But what does it say? Have you got access to Disney Plus?
I can bring it up because I'm on my laptop, so I've got Disney Plus the website in here.
I swear on my Disney Plus it was an hour 56.
Interesting. Is that? Oh, I wonder if that's that format thing again, where if something plays at a slightly different frame rate, you lose minutes across several hours. Let me just see.
If it is, it's amazing considering that's the version you and I both watched and still felt it was a bit slow.
2 hours 4 minutes on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Really? Hold on. Let me look at mine.
Yeah. I could screenshot it if you'd like. There you go. Do a little screenshot. Chris is no longer at his mic, so I'm going to have to relay what he's saying to you, dear listener. He's gone to check. He's investigating. I'm kind of curious, to be honest. You never know. Where is he? Oh, Nadia was flying somewhere while all this has been going on, and she's just safely landed. That is good news. Oh, that's good news. Yeah, she's in Spain. Oh no, she's not in Spain. No, that's later in the year. Where is she now? Can't remember.
The only thing I...
Go on.
It is absolutely 2 hours, 4 minutes. The only thing I can think is that I looked at the length, I hit play and looked at the length, or the film was already, I'd gone to watch it before or something. And yeah, I clearly looked at the length on it playing when, it had already played 8 minutes. So apologies. 2 hours.
It's fine. It's just because I honestly I didn't think you were wrong. I just thought maybe it was that frame rate thing, but that would have been weird. But yeah, it's 2 hours, 4 minutes. It definitely could have lost about half an hour. No, without question.
Oh yeah, definitely. God.
Yeah, I don't think that's in dispute. I wonder if one of the other Die Hard movies is that length. The first one's 2 hours 12. Fourth one is 2 hours 9. Oh, they're pretty consistent, these, aren't they? 2 hours 9 for Vengeance. Wow, these are. I might have just. Oh no, okay. A Good Day to Die Hard, 1 hour 39. All right, they broke the. That's a shame. The worst one and also fucked up the timing formula.
I was going to say it suffers for it. Like that one should be 2 hours. It shouldn't. It shouldn't at all.
But yeah, look at that. 2 hours 4, 2 hours 12, 2 hours 9, 2 hours 9, and then an hour and 39. But A Good Day to Die Hard is about the length Die Hard 2 should have been. I genuinely think it's a better movie if you take half an hour from this. Oh, man, I just found out that Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie has come out today.
That looks awesome.
It does look awesome. I can't wait. I'm so excited. It looks so dumb.
So good.
I can't wait. It's all the Lonely Island guys making a Chippendale movie. That's fucking insane. Anyway, so let's should we move on to the trivia, Chris?
Let's triv it up.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you some trivia. So we already talked about it, but it's based on a book. The Die Hard movies have an interesting history that most of them, certainly the first three, all came from adapting something. The third one is a really interesting situation we'll talk about, and I think it's the reason the third one is so good, but we'll talk about that separately when we get to it. But the third one's a really weird script situation. But this one was based on a novel 58 Minutes by Walter Wager. I don't know. Wager. I'm sorry. I don't know. So as a nod to that in this movie, early in the movie when they talk about which plane, like when they talk about how much time they have, one of the air traffic control guys, maybe the tech guy, says that they've got about 58 minutes to sort the problem out, and that is because that is how long until the first plane runs out of fuel. Again, one of those weird nitpicks you could have is that if they've all got if the one with the least amount of fuel has 58 minutes in the air, is that not enough fuel? 58 minutes is a long amount of time. It's an hour. Is there not another airport within 58 minutes?
But I guess they don't know, they just think it's a technical thing and it'll be sorted shortly.
No, that's after he says the 58 minutes thing after they found out they're being held hostage, being held ransom.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, and that, yeah.
It's
yeah,
bad.
Fair point.
Like, and that's the one with the least amount of fuel. Holly's plane has it's like 2 or 3 hours, because there's a point later in the movie where Holly's like, it's been hours, like, and I'm just like, wait a minute, it's been hours, yeah, plural. Land anywhere else.
It is weird because every time they gave like a fuel check, I would look, and it was always much longer than the movie had left. I was like, why is this not more sort of, you never get I know Bruce Willis has to travel about, but I don't know, it's just weird that it's not more sort of real time.
Yeah, why don't you say it's Holly's plane that has 58 minutes? Or
yeah, it's bizarre.
I don't know. Yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, so John McTiernan, who directed the first one, had actually been planning to help to direct this one too, but he wasn't able to due to a commitment he'd made to directing The Hunt for Red October. So then Rennie Harlin was hired after the Fox executives were impressed with his the dailies of a film he was making at the time called The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Ford Fairlane? That classic movie we all definitely remember. In an interview, John Amos, I need to look this guy up to figure out this trivia. I meant to do it before and I forgot. So John Amos said there was actual tension between him and Bruce Willis during the course of filming, which did get reflected on screen. Let's just say that he will never humiliate me in public again, Amos said. You got that, Bruce? Wow, that doesn't sound amicable at all. Who's this guy? John Amos. I recognise the name, but
John Amos is
he's the general. He's the leader of the army group that come in.
Yeah, because he's done. What's the other? Yeah, Coming to America.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think he was in Roots.
Yeah, he was in Roots. Coming to America. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air as well. Didn't he play Will's dad?
Oh, maybe. He's an excellent actor. He's great in this. He's so good in this movie. Because he has to play like a person who's essentially antagonizing John McClane, but then kind of comes round to him. But you get the impression he, like, when you watch it back a second time, there's a third layer of, actually, I should play along with this guy so he doesn't figure me out. Like, you see him sort of working that out when you watch it, knowing what the character is. It's a surprisingly nuanced performance for what's written. You know, it doesn't need to be as nuanced as he does it. So credit to Amos. And going back to that trivia, then that's pretty crazy. In an interview, John Amos said there was actual tension between him, which got reflected on the screen. Let's just say that he'll never humiliate me again in public. John Amos said, "You got that, Bruce." Wow. Anyway.
Yeah, but that's not, there's multiple tales of that, isn't there?
Yeah, Bruce is an interesting character. If anyone wants to hear some interesting stories of Bruce Willis that you might not have heard before, because obviously a lot of the ones that happen on film sets people hear about, there's a great podcast, I think it's called Haleywood, and it tells the story of the time Bruce Willis tried to buy a town. It's fucking bonkers.
There's also the third live Kevin Smith evening with DVD, which I think is
yes.
an evening with Kevin Smith 3, even harder. That one has the Die Hard 4 story, which is all about Bruce Willis, and then his Too Fat for 40 DVD has like a solid hour on Kevin Smith directing Bruce Willis.
Yeah, and I if you haven't already seen those, you absolutely should. But I'd be surprised if there are many people listening to this that aren't already aware of the content. Those clips travelled far, didn't they? I think a lot of people's modern day impression of Bruce Willis on set has been coloured by Kevin Smith's words. I feel like a lot of people have. Even the people who don't follow Kevin Smith or watch those evening wids, those clips were all over YouTube at the time and have been quoted many times in the years since. So it would surprise me that if there were people that hadn't. But yeah, absolutely. If you haven't seen those, you should definitely see those. They're also very good. But yeah, it fits with what we know about Bruce for sure. So Black & Decker paid to have its cordless drill featured in a scene with Bruce Willis. The scene got cut, and the company sued 20th Century Fox in the very first ever product placement lawsuit for a film that was settled out of court. The studio giving Black & Decker $150,000. Fine, weird, but fine.
But of course they should. If the deal was this, we give you this money, put this scene in our put this in the movie, and then they don't put it in the movie, of course they should have to give the money back.
Right, exactly. The fact that even went to court, or was going to go to court, and was a lawsuit at all, and not just we're very sorry we cut the scene, have your money back, is melting to me. Yeah, 100%. Really sorry, the scenes had to be cut. Here's your cash. I guess maybe it was the cash plus damages, maybe. Like, the time wasted or whatever. I don't know. It's hard to see, but yeah.
Which I'd also argue is fair.
The scenes of Bruce Willis running through the tunnels under the airport were filmed at a water treatment facility near Los Angeles. That facility has miles of underground tunnels and is actually used again in Live Free or Die Hard from 2007, doubling as the Woodland Social Security Administration building. So there you go.
Well, there you go.
The general in question is from Val Verde, which is a fictitious Latin American country that's also used in the movie Commando. So there you go. Just through poor luck, Denver was actually unseasonably snowless during the shooting of this movie. When the plan was for it to be very snowy all the time to sort of create that vibe and that look. So they actually had to scramble and create a bunch of artificial snow because they just expected real snow to be there. I just think it's fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
The scene where McClane climbs the ladder from the service tunnel up to the runway and is nearly run over by Esperanza's plane was filmed from sort of 8 different locations separately. So that scene was like pieced together so separately. So one of them was from one of the shots McClane in the tunnel and climbing up the ladder was filmed in Granada Hills, California. The close-ups of Esperanza inside the plane's cockpit were filmed in California on a soundstage. The head-on view of the plane, as it was in the sky on approach, was filmed in the Mojave Desert, also in California. The exterior shot of the grating door on the runway was shot in Michigan for some reason. I don't know what they were in Michigan for, but sure. The rear shot of the plane approaching the runway with light in the background was shot in San Francisco.
Jesus.
The plane, just after it landing, moving towards the screen. Oh, that was also shot in Michigan. So I guess they shot a chunk of the movie in Michigan then. I didn't realise. Actually, that makes sense with the last trivia, didn't it? Yeah, okay. Ignore me. The plane rushing towards McClane with McClane in the foreground was filmed at Lake Tahoe, which is in California. And then the plane rushing towards McClane, a scene from behind the landing gear, was shot in Denver, Colorado. So there you go. That scene was pieced together from half of America.
Wow. Seems unnecessary, but there must have been a reason.
Yeah, I'm sure it was just like production reasons. Like they were shooting a couple of different places, and like they didn't have this location at one, but they had this location at the other. It was just you wouldn't. To be fair, you wouldn't know it watching the scene. So
no, that's true. Yeah. To be fair,
so I don't know. It's interesting, but
no, you're right. You are right. You wouldn't know. So
yeah, no, they did a good job considering that was the situation, and I am curious as to what the reason was for filming all those different locations for that one scene. But anyway, it's not a bad scene, although it's one of those scenes where it's like there's an attempt to recreate tension, but it's just like not working because it's just like, well, he's just gonna get out and roll out of the way in time, isn't he? Like, I never felt like, at no point do you feel like he's about to be squished by a plane. Do you know what I mean?
No, because also, it's kind of like, you could just go back down, surely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and also, it's not sold very well by Bruce in that scene, because it's just like, I don't understand how stuck he is, because he's just sort of wiggling about in the grate, and like, reacting to the oncoming plane. It doesn't... he's sort of wiggling about in a way that doesn't really communicate very clearly to me in what way he's stuck. Maybe they needed a shot filmed, in another part of the world, where like you see his like gun strap or something like get caught on a piece of metal or something, so you know exactly why he's stuck and what he's struggling to loosen himself from. But like, because you just don't feel like he's actually stuck. Like he just seems like he's wiggling for the sake of it. Like I don't know, it's a strange scene. According to John Leguizamo, and I love John Leguizamo so much. This story makes me sad. His role was intended to be much larger until the filmmakers realized how short he was. The part was then cut down to one line, and then even that got dubbed over by someone else.
Oh, poor guy.
That's
amazing.
I love John Leguizamo. It's so unlucky. That's awful. Yeah, there you go.
So which part was he playing?
I think he's just like, isn't he like one of the police officers at the beginning of the... Oh no, isn't he the... no, he's not the police. Isn't he the security guy that Bruce tells to go get the police officers before he goes into the baggage claim? I think that's John Leguizamo. 1 second, let me look it up, John. Because that's going to bother me.
That would make sense for him to have originally been in more of the film.
Yeah, like you feel like he might have maybe even been replaced by the, some of his scenes and the idea, because you could imagine him being the guy that shows up later in the sort of Argyle role, like in terms of riding the little buggy round and picking him up, and instead they got the janitor to do it. But let me just check if I'm right about this. Oh no, here he is loading a gun, so he must be someone different. Wait a second. No, I've completely mixed up which character he's playing. He's playing one of the terrorists.
Oh, right, okay. Well, fair enough.
Looks that way.
Fair enough.
Oh, I think maybe... Is he the one that gets away? Oh, no. I don't know. He's one of the terrorists.
Is he maybe the one that gets away from the fight by the radio tower and tells the guy that the others are dead?
Yeah, he must be. And then it looks like he gets shot off his snowmobile later by McClane.
Right.
So there you go. He's the guy that McClane steals his snowmobile thing.
Right, cool.
Cool. There you go. That's who John Leguizamo was. Anyway, so here we go. So it was Rennie Harlin's idea that Colonel Stewart, played by William Sadler, the film's main villain, to be introduced naked doing martial arts exercises during the film's opening sequence. He would later say that it was an effective but unusual way to introduce the character. Agreed. Was unusual. I found it unnecessary.
Yeah, I completely forgot that was in. When this film started, I was like, has Disney Plus got a version I've never seen? Because I do not remember this. That was my first indication of, I'm not going to be able to defend this film as much as I thought I would.
Yeah, that's fair. The film was shipped to theatres as something described as wet prints. It's an industry term that means that it was just barely completed before its release.
Yeah, wow.
So editing went up to the wire, it seems. After the film's... oh, my God, Chris. Right, this trivia is amazing. We laughed at a joke. So let me go back a few steps, sorry. We met the wonderful Zach Callison, voice of Steven from Steven Universe. And if you recall, we joked about the Steven Universe movie just secretly being Die Hard for some reason. I can't remember how we got to that, but we merged the points. Do you recall this? And
no, but it sounds like classic Chris and Dan banter.
Yeah, classic Chris and Dan nonsense. And there's a point when Zach does Steven's voice and says...
Oh, yeah.
And he says, yippee-ki-yay, then he sort of trails off, and you said, good, yes, well, good for trailing off on that. And then we joked about...
No, I think he said, didn't he do the dubbed version? Didn't he say yippee-ki-yay, mother fudger, or something?
So, well, yes. So what he then said was, yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon, when you point out that he ended it early. And we laughed, and I laughed at least, not realising that that is actually what is said in the redubbed version of this movie that airs on television. The movie, when it airs on television, for some reason, McClane says, yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon, because the character in the film, his code name is Falcon, but it's not his name.
Yeah. I don't know whether I knew that then, but I definitely knew that since, because when I watched all of them, I did a real deep dive into like the uses of yippee-ki-yay and stuff like that. So yeah, that's quite a famous one. So yeah, I really was hoping that it was going to be on a podcast. The actor that played Steven from Steven Universe, Zach Allison, quoted yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon. Someone had it in.
Oh, yeah, someone should add that in. Someone should add as a little addendum. The Mr. Falcon line is so famous that Zach Callison, voice of Steven from Steven Universe, on the podcast Steven University, quoted the yippee-ki-yay Mr. Falcon, because it's that much of a cultural touchstone. Anyway, in the making of featurette for Die Hard with a Vengeance, Reginald Val Johnson has said that his appearances in the first two Die Hard films led to frequently being teased and joked at by friends about his obsession with Twinkies. Some people would even go as far as to buy Twinkies and to throw them into his car through the window while he was inside, and saying things like, "Oh, we knew you wanted some of those."
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like, I guess, that as an introduction you see the Twinkies and you realise who it is, but it was like, I think there's a line where John's like, put the Twinkie out of your mouth and do your job or something.
It's that there's so many.
Aggressive.
If it cut to a Twinkie, a singular Twinkie, and it pulls back and that's who it is, and he's just eating a Twinkie, that's fine. What makes that scene egregious is his whole desk is covered in Twinkies. He likes Twinkies. I like Twinkies. If I bought a box, I wouldn't feel the need to cover my desk in them. Also,
Yeah,
in this
you
country,
would.
you wouldn't be likely to do that on the grounds that Twinkies are so fucking expensive, and you wouldn't want to waste them anyway.
Are Twinkies sort of sold in supermarkets here?
They are, but they're usually sold on a special like American imports aisle with like Lucky Charms, Hershey's chocolate, and they're always like extortionately expensive. They're like low, they're very low cost, like in America. Like they're very, they're cheap sort of snacky treats. You just wouldn't pay through the nose for them. They're absurdly priced in the UK because they're usually imported, specially. I would like them to actually start properly, like distributing Twinkies through normal supply chains to the UK, so I could buy them at a price that wasn't insane. Because I do like a Twinkie; they're good. But yeah,
Fair.
Yeah. Have you had a Twinkie? Try a Twinkie?
Yeah, I thought it was just a bit much for me personally. But in terms of my sweet tooth taste, I would always probably defer more to biscuits and chocolate bars as opposed to cake-based treats.
That makes sense.
I'm picking a hobnob or a dairy milk over a muffin or a Victoria sponge any day of the week.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Anyway,
I feel
next week,
this is
Dan and Chris
completely
do
irrelevant.
food.
But I feel like, Dan, because of, especially in areas like London, the prominence of crosstown donuts, Krispy Kremes, etc.
Yes.
I feel like I don't eat as many donuts. I probably eat, at most, one donut a year. Genuinely. One,
not
maybe
enough.
2 donuts a year.
You need more donuts
most.
in your life, mate.
Yeah, I really feel like I'm sort of not with the majority of people on that. I think other people are eating donuts a lot more.
Yeah, well, there's a really good one in London as well, Donut Time. And Donut Time, so I had Donut Time donuts like 4 or 5 times. It was like, they're great, and kept going back. And then discovered after that all their donuts are somehow vegan. And I was just like, they are? How? I don't understand.
I bet that gave you carte blanche to go back even more.
Yeah, vegan donuts. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Very good. They're really delicious. Yeah. Really good. Anyway, back to the trivia, Chris. Got 2 bits left.
Yep.
One piece of trivia left, and then a small section, a famous section of our podcast. So, in interviews, Bruce Willis has expressed displeasure with this film. He feels it's too similar to the original Die Hard. He didn't like the constant references to that film either.
Yeah, well.
So there you
Fair
go.
play.
Bruce Willis agrees. So, welcome to our famous segment. Planes exist.
Way, yeah, they do.
Planes exist, Chris. Would you like to hear what planes appear in this movie?
How bad is it that I found myself thinking, when was there a car? I really thought it was going to be cars exist and just completely
No cars exist this week, Chris. We got planes. Would you like to hear about the planes that are in this movie? There are lots.
I would love to. I want, at this precise moment in time, I want nothing more than to hear about the planes in this movie, apart from maybe a donut from Donut Time.
Oh, they're really good.
Yeah, no, I believe you.
I don't know if they're anywhere outside of London they're, or not. I'd have to look them up. But if you can, Donut Time donuts, they look so indulgent and so absurd, and they're so delicious. And then you just like, yeah, they're vegan. Like, it's good. It's real good. Let's see. Oh, during the lockdown, looks like the Donut Time guys sold home kits where you could make your own Donut Time donuts.
Oh wow, fair play.
Donut Time UK. Actually, none of this is talking about that they're vegan, but they are. They definitely are. Yeah,
Fair play to it.
You can get them on. Oh, there you go. Donut Time dessert / vegan. Yeah, there you go. They're very good. They're very good. I'm trying to find out if they look like maybe they're just located in London. It looks like.
There might be one at the location of the stag do I'm going to this weekend. Bear with me.
Oh, there you go.
Let's have a look. Donut Time. If I can get one, I'll take a picture and we'll put it on the YouTube edition.
Please.
No, to be fair, there does not seem to be.
Yeah, I'm looking. It looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 or 6 locations, but they're all just spread across London.
Oh, wow.
Wait, one,
Yeah,
two,
correct, but
three,
there's-
4, 5, 6. There are 7 of them, but they're all scattered across London.
That
Disappointment.
is- Yeah.
They're great.
To the
though.
point
If
where
you-
they've even got some like in Westfield like shopping centre but still like in London. Oh
Yeah.
wait, apparently there's one in Reading.
Is there?
Yeah, I'm on the donuttime.co.uk/pages/stores.
Google.
there's,
Google need to sort your life out. Then I've gone on Google. I've typed in donut time, and I've opened up the map, and all the little pinpoints are all in London, and there's none anywhere else in the country. Google, sort out your map.
Well, if Google, unless these closed in the pandemic and they've not updated their website, but according to this, there's ones in Basingstoke, Reading, and Wokingham.
You'll have to
let's
go.
Google donut time Reading and see if we have a bit more joy. Because listeners are, interested. Yeah, donut time, Riverside, Oracle.
Oh yeah, look at
There you
that!
go.
I've just found a picture of it, and it's like, oh wow, they've done it. Okay, look at that. Yes. They're very good. Like I said, they feel really excessive. They do have simple, just like donuts, but most of their donuts feel so excessive. They're great. You've probably got some pictures of them up now. They're very good.
Oh yeah. What? And they're
The
all vegan, even the ones with like the fancy shit on top.
Yeah, because like if you look at what they've chosen, it's like the toppings are usually very cleverly chosen to be like Lotus biscuits. I believe are vegan, so you can put a Lotus biscuit or Biscoff, whatever they call it. Those things that stuff's vegan, so you can put that in as many things as you want. So yeah.
Anyway, planes exist.
Planes exist, Chris. Planes exist. Right, let me find my... So, in the past, I've had to go to the IMCDB, the Internet Movie Car Database, to identify which cars are in the movies that we watch. If they don't automatically put them in the IMDb trivia, which they usually do. If there's like a hero car, like a car that's used a lot in the movie, it ends up in the IMDb trivia as just, this is the car they used. But sometimes it isn't, and because I've committed to doing Cars Exist as a segment, I have to force myself to go to the imcdb.org or whatever it is, which is the Internet Movie Car Database. You type in a movie, it tells you what cars are in the movie, you find the car you want, and then you can talk about it. Because they literally list like everything. Now, this movie doesn't have any cars in it, as been pointed out. Actually, it does, doesn't it? Fuck.
Yeah, because he's got the one that's being
The one that gets towed away.
Fucking
Alright, IMCDB. Fucking hell. I hate this fucking... this segment. Funny for about 2 minutes. Several years of my life. I'm doing it, Chris. Die Hard 2. This is like you looking at Donut Time. It's not exactly riveting, is it? Die Hard 2 movie from 1999. Okay. So the police cars look like they're Chevy Impalas. Which is the car that he has towed away at the beginning of the movie? It looks like an Oldsmobile 88 Royale.
Nice.
Okay.
Cool.
So that's the movie that's the movie. That's the car that gets towed away at the beginning.
Cool.
Great. We're all learning. So, the planes that show up in this movie... isn't it funny that I'm way more excited to talk about the planes than the car? The Lockheed L 10113851 TriStar 50 and its variant plane, the Lockheed L 10113851 TriStar 1, both appear in the movie. The Boeing 727 and its variant, the Boeing 727-22, both show up in the movie. The McDonnell Douglas F4 Phantom 2 is in this movie, Chris. Not the McDonnell Douglas F4 Phantom 2.
Yeah.
And I bet you spotted the Douglas DC 872. Bet you spotted that straight away.
Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, yeah. You couldn't stop me spotting that.
Yeah. The Bell UH-1 Icarus.
Yep.
The North American P-51 Mustang. Wait, there's a plane called a P-51 Mustang?
Oh, yeah. I noticed that one via my erection.
Oh, fuck off. I've clicked on that, Chris.
Yeah.
It's a fucking picture of a plane in the fucking control room. That's not even in the movie. That's just a picture of a plane someone has up in the control room, and the good people at the PDB picked up on it. Also, it's worth noting that the Bell UH-1 Icarus, that's a helicopter.
I admit it makes my erection confusing, but, most of them are.
Yep. The Fairchild C123 Provider, although in admittedly heavily modified state, appears in the movie. That's the movie that the bad guy lands in, the one that nearly runs over Bruce Willis. The Aerospilante AS350B appears in the movie. That's a helicopter. That's in it quite a lot by the look of this. It's the one he uses to chase down the plane at the end of the movie. It's the one the reporter lady has. A Boeing 747-121 appears at the end. That's the plane they're going to escape in that he blows up. And then at the end of this, they've just got various aircraft, shots of the safely landed airliners at the end of the film. On the one from the left to right, we got there's a picture. Lockheed L1011 TriStar, an ATA American Transair, another Boeing 747, another Lockheed. Why have these already been listed? We talked about these. The McDonnell McDouglas DC-10, that's a new one, and then another Boeing 747. Okay, fine. Those ones we've already mostly seen. There you go. Planes exist, everyone. Planes exist.
I know they're in extreme circumstances, but usually, planes can't just all land on the same runway within minutes of each other. So that was a bit okay, if you say so.
Yeah, bit weird. I'm going with it, but yeah bit
oh yeah, again, action movie, fine, whatever. But yeah.
So yeah. I at some point I will retire mostly the jokey planes and cars exist where I do a bunch of listing of things, but the thing is, every time I think I'm going to get rid of it, we could do a movie, and then there is just inexplicably in the trivia, anyone gives a shit, the car that they drove was a Chevy Impala. I'm just like, why?
I'll be honest with you, Dan. The day you decide we're not doing it anymore is the day I'm picking Cars as the next movie. So we're doing it.
And then I'm fucked, because that will presumably all of those cars are based on real world cars, and I would there would presumably be several bits of trivia around that. Yeah, all right,
it would be even worse to the Italian job, because it wouldn't just be this car, this car, this car, this car. It would be this car is probably based on this car, but could be this car. This car is based,
right. Yeah.
It'd be so.
I thought the joke there was going to be the day you do that is the day I choose the first Fast and the Furious movie for this.
Yeah, could do that too.
Which I recall as doing having to do this for Italian Job, and that being a whole thing as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. It's been a good time. Oh shit, yeah. I've got to choose a movie.
Yeah. It did seem like you were wrapping up, and I was like, well, where we going next, Daniel? Good question.
Did we wrap up whether we recommend this or not? Yeah, we did with that at the front. Yeah, it's fine. I don't particularly recommend it. Chris does. It's fine.
But in the context of, I'd recommend people watch all the Die Hard movies.
Yes, sure.
And
understandable.
This is a Die Hard movie.
Understandable.
As a film on its own merit, if you're big into action movies, I actually think the last half an hour of this film makes it worth watching for that reason as well. If you quite like generic action movies, yeah, give it a go for that reason as well. I'd recommend it in that context as well.
Yeah. So I had two choices for next week, Chris, that I was torn between.
Are you going to do what I did last week?
No. I think I've decided. I had
okay.
I had Fine. Sorry. I just feel like to copy what you did last week would be just. Oh, you know what? That's very in the vein of Die Hard 2. Yeah, let's copy what we did last week, Chris.
No, I'm joking. You can choose. It's fine.
No, let's copy what we did last week, Chris. So I was gonna go in in a sort of because this is kind of not particularly a family film or or anything. It's it's an action movie. It's kind of it is what it is. I thought let's do a classic family film next week. So I've got a classic family film, and then I had another movie that's kind of an action movie. It's a parody of the action movie tropes of the 80s, including Die Hard, that's also a family film. So I've got two. One that's just a pure classic family film, and one that is and I've not seen it in many years, but my memory of it is that it is a parody of all the stereotypical action movies of the 80s and early 90s. But it also happens to be a family film. So we can just go clean-cut family film, get away from action altogether, and save the analysis of 80s action movies for another time, so it's not so close. Or we can just go straight into that. So what do you feel like, Chris? Because let's do a worse version of what you did last week. We're on the fly. You cleverly sort of gave me a choice between two things, but didn't tell me what the things were.
Yeah, but I did then reveal both, which I'd want as well. We've not really done proper parody, and let's do the action movie parody that's still also
okay. Maybe I should rephrase parody. Like it's a take on. It's like an exploration of.
Yeah, no, go on, go. Hey, last week I nearly randomly went. This was the other consideration for last week. I was gonna go. Look, Dan, there's only one film we can follow up Gremlins 2 with, and that is obviously Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. So. Don't worry about that. Let's go for that one.
I think we should get to that at some point, though. I think Stop or My Mum Will Shoot is like a fascinating film.
Absolutely.
For so many reasons. That's not one of the situations. So what do you want to do?
The action movie family film.
Right. We are next week then going to be watching Last Action Hero, which is an Arnold Schwarzenegger film about action films.
Cool. And what was the other choice?
The other choice, just the clean family film that I've not seen in a few years and always love revisiting. Everyone's favourite, Cool Runnings.
Ah, nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, the one hesitation on Cool Runnings was we just did a movie that Disney owned. Like, doing another movie that happens to be on Disney Plus feels a little too easy. But yeah, Cool Runnings is great. We'll come back to it. There's no way we're not going to cover Cool Runnings at some point on this podcast. Absolutely.
No, Cool Runnings is another big overlap where we both have very fond childhood memories of that film.
Right.
So.
Right. But Last Action Hero, which I don't believe you've seen.
No, I haven't. No.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah,
so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, nice. Because I remember being blown away by this movie as a kid, but I've not seen it in a long time, and I'm worried it's nowhere near as clever as it felt at the time. But as a kid who watched a lot of movies, I got a lot out of it. So we'll see. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Obviously come back next week to hear that. Or if you are listening to this on like iTunes or Spotify or whatever, you can hear the Last Action Hero episode right now. This minute. You could literally stop me this sentence, mid-sentence, and go listen to it. But to do that, you've got to be on the Patreon for as little as $1 a month, where you can hear episodes a week ahead of their release. So whenever an episode releases, the next one goes up on our Patreon. So yeah, they're a week ahead. The only downside to that is once you do that, you're then just at that pace. You're just getting them a week early all the time. But
there's bonus stuff we've discussed putting up, and
there's a few. We do occasionally do bits on there, like and a few of them are still available. So like you can go back and listen to like when we did Nothing But Claps, and we've threatened to do a Gremlins commentary on there at some point for Gremlins 2. Stick around. We will add stuff to that. Our schedules are a bit manic at the moment, but the plan is to keep doing that. But also, you support what we do. It's as little as $1 a month, and if you can afford that and would like to support us, then that's a great way to do it. But if you don't.
Yeah,
shrug.
Absolutely. If you want to interact with accounts and probably not get a reply, it's nothing but static without the G on Twitter, nothing but static UK on Facebook, nothing but static on YouTube, and then nothing but static at gmail.com, also without the G, if you want to email in.
It's that excellently done, Chris. Except I actually brought our Nothing But Static Twitter account back this week for the first time in like 2 years.
Yeah, but I'm assuming by the time this airs in 8
You're
weeks,
assuming by the time this airs, I've got on board of promoting our stuff again.
I'm just assuming, in 2 months' time. No, I did. That is why I said that, because I knew you were deliberately trying to reply more on Twitter. I had seen that exchange.
Very good. Yeah. So. Not just reply more, but like actually promote the podcast. We just don't talk about it anywhere anymore, I've realised. We just let it exist. And that's not great. So yeah. We are now going to be... we're now going to be doing that, basically. We'll put stuff up as we do it, so people will know it exists.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks everyone for listening. As always, you can, if you do want to comment, the other ways to do it, you can go on the YouTube channel and comment on the video version of this. You can also tweet us individually at Dan Doolan, at C Billingham with 2 M's. That can also get to us, as Chris already mentioned, mail at nothingbutstatic.co.uk if you'd like to send us your thoughts via the format of email. You're also welcome, of course, to support us in any of the sort of non-financial ways if you're not interested in the Patreon, by just simply reviewing, liking, subscribing, in all those ways. We talked about this last time. If you'd like to leave a review that tells us about movies that are nostalgic for you, a little bit later this series I'm going to read through some of the ones we've had since I last asked for this. So if you want to leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever, that basically, instead of reviewing this podcast, which is quite frankly boring, you just tell us about your what would be a rewind review for you. What movie do you think holds up? What movie do you think doesn't hold up? Let us know. Put that in the review instead. Way more interesting to read.
Absolutely.
Than you saying how average this podcast is at best.
Which would be fair, but not as interesting.
Not as interesting at all.
I'm Chris Billingham.
I'm Dan Doolan.
And this review has been rewound.